The room fell silent before he even finished the sentence. It wasn't the kind of silence that fades in awkwardly, it crashed into the office like a sudden storm, heavy and suffocating. Every keyboard stopped. Every whisper died. And in that frozen moment, Michael Carter realized he had just risked everything, not just his job, but the fragile life he had spent years trying to rebuild. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the courage to take risks even when the world feels against you, take a moment to like this video, share it, and subscribe to the channel. And tell me in the comments, have you ever taken a risk that changed your life? Michael wasn't the kind of man people noticed. At 36, he carried the quiet exhaustion of someone who had lived too much life in too little time. His mornings began before sunrise in a small apartment in Columbus, Ohio, where the faint hum of traffic mixed with the soft breathing of his 6-year-old son, Noah. Every day was a careful balancing act, packing lunches, tying shoelaces, catching buses, and still managing to show up to work on time, even when life seemed determined to slow him down. Being a single dad wasn't something Michael had planned. 3 years earlier, his wife had walked out, leaving behind a short note and a long silence that never quite filled itself. Since then, it had just been him and Noah. There were nights when Michael stayed awake long after his son had fallen asleep, staring at the ceiling, wondering if he was enough. If he could be both mother and father. If the cracks in his life were too wide to ever fix. At work, Michael kept his head down. He worked as a junior analyst in a mid-sized financial firm downtown, where ambition filled the air like oxygen. People there chased promotions, recognition, and approval. Michael chased stability. He needed that paycheck. He needed the routine. His son needed him to not fail. And then there was Rebecca Lawson. She was everything Michael wasn't, confident, composed, and effortlessly commanding. As the department head, Rebecca had a presence that could quiet a room without a single word. But beneath that sharp professionalism, there was something else. A quiet kindness that revealed itself in small moments. Asking about his son when no one else did, allowing him to leave early when Noah got sick, remembering details most people overlooked. Michael never meant to notice her that way. But over time, those small acts began to mean something more. Not in a reckless, foolish way, but in the quiet, terrifying way hope sneaks back into a life that had long given up on it. The dare came on a Friday afternoon. It started as a joke during a team lunch. Someone laughed, someone teased, and before Michael knew it, his co-workers were daring him to ask Rebecca out. They didn't think he'd do it. He barely thought he would either. But something about that day felt different. Maybe it was the way Noah had hugged him extra tight that morning. Maybe it was the exhaustion of always playing it safe. Or maybe it was the realization that life wasn't waiting for him to feel ready. So when he stood up and walked toward Rebecca's office, his heart wasn't just pounding, it was screaming. He knocked once and stepped inside. Rebecca looked up from her desk, her expression calm but curious. The sunlight from the window framed her in a way that made the moment feel unreal, like something out of a life Michael didn't belong to. And then he said it. Not smoothly. Not confidently. But honestly. He told her he knew it was inappropriate. That he understood the risks. But that he respected her, admired her, and that if she ever wanted to get coffee outside of work, he would be honored. And then came the sentence that froze the entire office. Rebecca stood up slowly, her voice steady but filled with something deeper than surprise. She said that no one had ever spoken to her with that much sincerity before, and that she had been waiting a long time for someone brave enough to see her as more than just a title. The silence outside the office thickened. People weren't just listening now, they were holding their breath. Michael felt his world tilt. Because this wasn't rejection. But it wasn't simple either. Rebecca continued, explaining that her position made things complicated. That there were rules, expectations, and consequences. But she also admitted something that made Michael's chest tighten, that she had noticed him too. Not just as an employee, but as a man who showed up every day carrying more than anyone could see. That moment changed everything. Not overnight. Not in some dramatic, fairy tale way. But slowly, carefully, like two people learning how to step onto fragile ground without breaking it. Weeks passed. Then months. Rebecca transferred departments, a decision that surprised many but made sense to those who understood what was at stake. It wasn't for him alone, it was for herself, for the chance to live a life not defined solely by her career. Michael, meanwhile, kept doing what he always did, showing up, working hard, being there for Noah. But something inside him had shifted. He wasn't just surviving anymore. He was allowing himself to hope. Their first coffee wasn't extraordinary by most standards. It was quiet, simple, almost cautious. But for Michael, it felt like stepping into sunlight after years of living in the shade. Rebecca didn't try to fix his life. She didn't rush into promises or expectations. She simply met him where he was, tired, hopeful, imperfect. And Noah. Noah surprised them both. The first time they met, he looked at Rebecca with curious eyes and asked if she liked dinosaurs. When she said yes, he smiled in a way that melted something deep inside both of them. It wasn't forced. It wasn't complicated. It was just real. Life didn't suddenly become perfect. There were challenges. Doubts. Moments where the weight of the past tried to pull them back. But they faced it together. Not as a perfect couple, but as two people choosing, every day, to try. And that one sentence, the one that froze the office, became something more than just a memory. It became the moment everything changed. So here's something I want you to do, before this story ends, drop a comment and tell me, do you believe one brave moment can truly change a life? Because sometimes, it's not about having everything figured out. Sometimes, it's about standing in the middle of fear, uncertainty, and judgment. And choosing to speak anyway. Michael never imagined that a simple dare would lead him here. To a life that still had struggles, still had questions, but also had something he thought he'd lost forever. A second chance. And if this story touched your heart, if it reminded you that even the smallest act of courage can open the biggest doors, take a moment to like, share, and subscribe. Your support helps keep stories like this alive. And who knows, maybe someone out there needs to hear this today more than you realize.